So typically when clients come to see me, it's probably because something has gone wrong. I prefer to step in before problems happen and advise clients on how to avoid those problems. Today, we're talking all about red flags and the kinds of things you might see in a prospective tenant that should give you reason to run. Let's get started. Now, the best way for you to set yourself up for success is to have your criteria set up for your tenants to review during the application process. Specifically, if you're looking for a certain credit score or certain work history, or you have expectations about prior evictions or even criminal history, you're going to want to establish a list of your criteria in writing for your tenant to review before they even apply, and have them sign off on this so that you know that if they apply knowing what your criteria was and pay an application fee and get rejected, that you can stand by that position, having informed them beforehand of the kinds of things you're looking for in an ideal tenant. Essentially, no one thing should be a deciding factor unless it's a truly horrible thing that absolutely disqualifies a prospective tenant. You really should take all of the different factors with a grain of salt. And including this list, I have 13 things that you should look out for. If you're hearing these things or seeing these things out of your prospective tenant, think about it. You're being told probably something else just under the surface. One of those things is, my last landlord was absolutely terrible. What are you getting from a statement like this from a prospective tenant? You're getting probably an indication that there was some conflict. And even if an eviction doesn't exist against this tenant, it is possible that something went wrong and the tenant was asked to leave. Anytime someone leaves and cannot use a prior landlord as a reference, you're probably dealing with a terrible situation that you're going to want to avoid. Additionally, this tenant may be indicating to you that they themselves are not an easy party to get along with. If that's the case with this particular tenant, that alone may be enough to say no thanks. But definitely a rule of thumb is any past behavior is going to be some indication of future behavior. And if right from the start that tenant is bad-mouthing their previous landlord, chances are they'll be bad-mouthing you pretty soon. Have you ever heard from a prospective tenant, oh, that last place was a total dump? What are they saying underneath the surface here? The tenant may be indicating to you that either A, they lived in a place that they allowed to go into disrepair. How much of that was the tenant's fault? I don't know. For every tenant, it's going to be a little bit different, but if they're illustrating to you that they come out of a place where things are a little dumpy, chances are, even if you deliver to them a perfect place, it might eventually end up becoming another dump. You're essentially being put on notice that this person might be messy, might be problematic when it comes to necessary repairs. Or they might be indicating to you that this is the kind of tenant that allows the house to fall apart all around them without reporting it to the landlord. You may want to dig a little deeper and see exactly what went on in this particular setting. Maybe your tenant is coming to you and saying, I'd like to pay the full year in advance. And at first glance, this may sound like a really great deal, but there might be something more sinister just underneath the surface. What's the real reason that this tenant wants to pay so much money up front? There may be a situation where someone has sold a house and they're looking for a place for exactly 12 months because 12 months later, they've got very specific plans to do X, Y, or Z. They've got the money from the sale of their property and they plan to use the rest of their money in some other way, but they need 12 months for some reason. All right. So that's entirely possible. But if they're unable to give a decent explanation or unwilling to share with you the reason that they're opting to pay 12 months in advance, you have to consider the possibility that maybe what they're asking for is hands-off landlord. There's no reason to come around for the next 12 months. Or perhaps I've got something planned and I don't want you to bother me while I use your property in a way that might be illegal. These kinds of things need to be watched and probably investigated. If you're not being given a plausible reason for paying all of the whole year upfront, then you probably have reason to be concerned. Ask questions, find things out, and make sure that you are making routine inspections on the property and that the property is being used well. It could be completely benign, but it might also be a terrible mistake. You know what's not a mistake is subscribing to this channel. If you haven't done it already, I ask that you do it. I hope that you're enjoying what you see here. If so, give us a thumbs up, indicate just how much you like our stuff. And if you have a question or comment, leave that below. I will personally address it and answer any questions you might have. Thanks. Another one you sometimes hear is, this deposit, would you mind us splitting it up over time? A tenant who cannot pay the first full month and a full deposit is indicating to you already they just can't afford this place. That's a clear indication and a red flag that you should heed. Again, I get the idea of trying to be accommodating to people, but you don't want to be so accommodating that you allow someone in who just doesn't have the income to afford staying on your property. If someone's asking for that kind of leeway, it's predictable that somewhere down the line there's going to be another occasion where they're asking you for a couple of days here, a few weeks there, and all of a sudden you've got a case of non-payment. You've already started off the lease with non-payment. Don't set yourself up for future failure. Another red flag that has to do with payment is, hey, I've got a buddy who's going to cover my first month and my deposit. If someone else is contributing to the payment for this particular tenant, it might be because this particular tenant, again, just doesn't have enough money to actually afford your rental. If that's the case, you really have to reconsider whether or not this is the best applicant to take the keys and occupy this space. Again, there's nothing wrong with someone being helped out, but if the indication is, I just don't have enough money to make this payment, what makes you think that down the line, they're not going to be in the same situation where they need to be bailed out, and you have no idea what that friend or family member or charitable organization is going to be able to do in the future. All you can predict is what your tenant can do right now. And if right now you can predict that the tenant is likely not going to have sufficient funds, that's somebody you're going to want to pass on. Maybe your prospective tenant is telling you they love a variety of jobs, and that's the reason that their application shows so many jobs over the last 12 months. It's true, there could be a perfectly valid reason why someone changed jobs multiple times in the last 12 months, but chances are pretty high that this person just isn't stable enough to stay in a job for an extended period of time. And if that's the case, then you really have to ask yourself whether or not this is somebody that you can rely on to consistently and timely pay their rent. A person's performance on the job and constantly changing that job could lead you to believe that maybe this job isn't going to last very long and the next job isn't going to be found for several months. That's going to put you in a bad position. If you have a prospective tenant who has job hopped multiple times in the last year, you may want to use this as a basis to reconsider this applicant. Another scenario might be a group of people looking to rent your property who might say something like, hey, we're all from out of state. We don't have jobs yet, but as soon as we get this place, we're going to start looking for work. Again, you're being told up front, even if they have the money to pay the first month's rent and the deposit, you're already being told that they are income insecure. And it's true, they might have money in savings, but that's difficult for you to confirm, because even if they produce bank records, you need to make sure that these records are themselves authentic, which could be complicated for you. And what you do know, again, from the start, is that they just don't have work right now. Why are they out of work? Why are they moving from the other state? There are serious questions to ask and serious considerations for you to have before you accept this as your next tenant. You might have come across someone who's super eager, who says, I can sign it all today. I am ready. That kind of enthusiasm, while nice, might itself be an indication that they're getting kicked out today and they need a place today because they've lost their place somewhere else. That's a terrible sign. If someone comes in with that kind of urgency, it's usually not for a good reason. Now, you're going to want to ask questions. You're going to want to get some kind of verifiable evidence as to a person's prior tenancy. But again, if you're not getting this information, if you're not getting plausible reasons for the suddenness of the need for a place, that's a good indication that something went wrong, or that you're just not hearing all of the necessary facts in this applicant. If someone is that in need of a place, chances are it's because they've put themselves in a bad position with a previous landlord. Once in a while, you'll have someone who's not receiving payment through a W-2. You don't need to confirm my income. I get paid in cash. If you can't confirm somebody's income, or if all of their payments are in cash, how are they reporting this to the IRS? Are you asking to see tax returns? If they're not reporting their income properly, they're indicating to you already that they're committing a crime against the federal government, but also that they're not the most truthful people. And people who aren't truthful to others are likely not going to be truthful to you. Someone who's paid entirely in cash, again, in and of itself is not a terrible thing. There are people who work legitimately and who report honestly the money they make in cash. But if you can't confirm someone's income, nor can you confirm that that income is steady enough to sustain a monthly payment in line with your criteria, then that might be a red flag, and it might be a basis for you to deny someone a stay on your property. Some people are difficult to communicate with. I don't do email might be something that you hear from a prospective tenant. And while that, again, by itself might not be so egregious, if there's only one method of communication that you can have with a tenant, that itself could pose a problem in the future. You're going to want someone with more open communication all the time. You might be willing to take a risk on someone, and there might be a very good reason why a person doesn't do email. But an unwillingness to have multiple avenues of communication might limit your ability to effectively communicate with your tenant when rent is late, or when repairs need to be taken care of, or when certain emergencies erupt and you need to get a hold of your tenant to address those emergencies quickly. You might get a prospective tenant who comes and visit the house for an inspection before you sign a lease and before you really talk about much, and they've already asked you an hour's worth of questions. What does this do? When was that broken? When was this repaired? How long has it been since you painted? When was the last time you checked for mold? Someone who comes in with a litany of questions like that may be indicating to you that they're going to continue to ask and ask and ask and pry and poke and try to find out things about the house that are virtually meaningless, that are just going to add to a laundry list of minor repairs for minuscule inconveniences. This is not the kind of thing that you want to have to deal with. If someone's asking a lot of legitimate questions because maybe it's their first time, or maybe they're new to the state, these things can be excusable, but someone who comes in and checks the tiniest little thing is telling you they're going to nitpick non-stop. This might not be a perfect fit for you, and you may take this as a red flag of someone to absolutely avoid. So much information is out there, and you may have a prospective tenant who you've already looked into ask you, wait, what? You looked at my Instagram? Why? Because it's important that you go and check who will eventually be living in your house. And if it turns out that you can confirm that this person isn't who they say they are on paper, that's going to be a reason for you to turn someone down. For example, if they present themselves having a certain job, but their LinkedIn page shows them working somewhere else, or unemployed, or still in school, these are questions that you're going to want to ask. Remember, when information is out there and available to the public, it's important for you to go check it out. There may be important information that someone has just put out there for the world to see that's going to tip you off as to the kind of tenant that you are reviewing. The screening process that you undertake should include checking out someone's social media. They may be more honest there than they're going to be in your conversation with them. You may also have come across someone who's checking out your house for somebody else. They may say, for example, I'm looking at this place for my cousin who is in another place, or out of town, or out of state, or just not available. And it turns out that there's a perfectly valid explanation for it. But sometimes it's a matter of the old switcheroo, and the person who signs all the documents isn't the person you're ever going to see residing on the property. It's always important that the person who comes to the property, or the person who signs the documents and is going to live in your home, is the person you've already seen, the person you've screened, and the person you know to actually exist. Make sure that when you get, for example, someone's ID, that you don't get a photograph sent to you, that you don't get something delivered only in a digital form, that you're able to see the physical ID itself. Chances are greater when you get a digital copy of something that it's been forged or tampered with in some way. The fact is that many people go in and assume the identity of others because they have things in their past, their credit, their rental history, their criminal past, that are gonna be a bar from them getting a rental these days. And if that's the case, that's the reason that we do all this screening. And if someone else is stepping in on their place, you have to ask questions. Who's actually going to be living here? Who will be the exclusive occupants? All of that must be understood before you sign a lease and before you hand over those keys. Landlords, there are a number of considerations that you need to make before you hand over the keys to your most valuable asset, that rent house. For even more content and things that YouTube seems to think that you will learn from, check out this video right here. I'm sure you will enjoy it. And until next time, landlords, happy leasing.